Hello and welcome to the Winners of Sheffield podcast. I'm here today with Tommy Frank. Tommy, good to meet you.
Good to meet you, Pan.
Yeah, known you for a while, but not properly met, I don't think. So good to come in and find out a little bit about you. Obviously, you were a boxer for many years and recently retired, and now you're a personal trainer, aren't you? So where did it all start for you? Where were you born? You know, born in Sheffield, were you?
Born in Sheffield. Yeah, my mum and dad lived on Manor Lane when I was born in Sheffield, and then I think I was about 2 years old when we moved to Intake. So I've grew up round Intake, so that's kind of where I'm from.
Yeah.
Like the Frank, like a good amount of my family are off Park Hill.
All right,
so that's where
strong
my family
Sheffield
grew up.
family.
Yeah. So yeah, Pang. So I'm an Intake lad.
Yeah. Whereabouts did you go to school then?
So I went to St John Fisher's primary school, Catholic primary school in Ackenthorpe.
Right.
And then I went to All Saints.
All right. Yeah. Good Catholic boy then.
Yeah, good Catholic boy, Pang. Well, I don't know about good, but yeah, I'm a Catholic boy, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you enjoy school?
No, Pang. I didn't. I mean, I enjoyed school. Do you know what I mean? I had a laugh and that. Not much in way of academic. Do you know what I mean? I didn't get any GCSEs and that.
In trouble a bit?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, odd thing, but not bad. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't say that I were in trouble a lot. Just probably at a normal.
Not scrapping.
No, not really. No, that weren't really me. Probably found myself in bits of bother here and there, but no, not too bad.
So you started boxing about 12, is that right?
Yeah, so that's originally when I first got into boxing. Yeah, but it was just a bit of a weird one, really, because nothing really. The only thing what put me into boxing were my cousin Ricky. So I mentioned Park Hill. So my auntie and uncle they used to live on Park Hill. Obviously with my cousin. So when I used to go and visit them, my cousin Ricky, he was a big boxing fan, and he had an handful of amateur fights, and he boxed for Sheffield Boxing Centre.
How much older?
What's Ricky? Is he about 36? I think maybe. So he's a few years older than me. Might be maybe five years older than me or something like that. But I can always just remember like going down to me auntie and uncles. They had a punch bag, so I can always remember that. And they were always like my uncles being like a boxing fan all years. He'd put like Mike Tyson's greatest hits on and stuff like that. So they were kind of my first boxing memories, like when I first discovered it. But I wouldn't say they were. I definitely weren't like a natural at it at first. I think I probably just liked the idea of it more than anything. But I think just something just kind of like intrigued me about it. I think, and then like I said, I think it was probably around 13 when I got my dad to take me down to But what happened first? It were me and a few mates from school. We went to like a boxing fitness class at Sam Jones at Crystal Peaks. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, well, I remember
Sam Jones gym. Yeah. So they did like a boxing class on a weekend. So I remember me and a few mates from school going there, and in the meantime, a few months before, I'd been doing a bit of shadow boxing at home because my uncle had given me some videos to take, Mike Tyson videos or old fight tapes. So I probably just watched them and started like practicing a bit of shadow boxing at home and that. So then when it came time for this class, the guy there, it was called Bob, and he at the time he was actually a coach at Sheffield Boxing Centre, but he just did this fitness class there. So he saw me, on bag, and he saw me sparring, and I think he must have just kind of sensed that I had a bit of something. So he told me to come down to the gym, which ironically was the gym that Ricky boxed at, my cousin anyway.
Right.
And obviously that's Glyn's gym, Sheffield Boxing Centre. So I think I just got my dad to take me down there, one Saturday morning. And that were, obviously that was the first time setting foot in Sheffield Boxing Centre, and I didn't leave that place till, just recently, just recently retired, went all the way through my boxing career there.
Yeah, which is
quite rare.
I was going to say,
really,
a lot of people tend to move around, don't they? I know Clinton fought out of there, but he were a bit of a journeyman.
Yeah. Just different. I think it is quite rare for a boxer to stay with the same team in the same gym all the way through the career. So yeah, like I said, that was when I was 13. Again, probably didn't just like the idea of it more than anything.
It looks like a good community down there.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. You know, SBC were fantastic. You know, the kids in there, and obviously I were one of them kids, and it's not just boxing. You know, it's just like life lessons. You know, bringing your confidence out and meeting new people, and it shapes you as a person. You know, my time at Sheffield Boxing Centre, that shaped me, not just as a boxer, but as a person as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I think any other boxer out there would probably tell you the same about their gym. You know, so it is, and that's why I think, you know, boxing's such an amazing sport. Not even just for the actual competitive boxing, but just what it can do for kids. You know, bringing the confidence out, and you know, whether they go on to box or not, that's not the point. But I guarantee you, you know, just from doing the training and the discipline and the respect, you know, they're going to use that in the life, in the jobs, with the family, everything. So yeah, it's you know, that's.
So
why
you went in there sort of 13. When did you first when were you first amateur?
Yeah, so I didn't have my first fight till I was 15. So like I said, I think I first went to SBC when I was around 13, but again, I didn't take to it at first. Like, something kept me going, but I was probably, I weren't the most confident kid. You know, I was probably a bit timid, and then once I'd got in the sparring and I'd took a few shots to nose and stuff, it probably like made me a little bit scared.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything, isn't it? You sort of, I mean, I'm playing a bit of paddle now, and you play somebody and you boss them, and you sort of think, oh,
I'd like to have a go at that paddle, you know. I would like to have a go. Yeah.
What sort of game?
Yeah, we'll have to, yeah.
But it's one of them where you have a game, you think, oh, I've bossed it here, and then you play it, it's all levels, isn't it? You play against somebody who's a bit stronger than you, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I've got a lot to learn in this.
100%. But it would just, but again, that were like some of the experiences what shaped me. You know, being young, and you know, little obstacles with your confidence that you've got to overcome, and like I said, I definitely wasn't the most naturally talented. You know, we in terms of like raw ability, but something just intrigued me about the sport, and just kept me going, basically. And then, like I said, I think a few of my school friends started going to SBC with me, and as the months went on, they just kind of drifted off. Yeah. And I just stayed. You know, I just kept going.
I remember when we interviewed Glyn, when he sort of said he went down to Brendan's gym, and it were a gang of them, and you know, slowly but surely, just him, last man standing kind of thing. So I told you earlier as well, I went to an evening with Johnny Nelson last year, and what I found interesting, I don't know how well you know Johnny, but
through boxing, I met him.
Well, I don't know whether you've heard him talk about his early career, but he openly says he hated boxing. He didn't really. Why. He only went to sort of, his brother went to the same gym, and he was like, it was just to spend a bit of time with him and that camaraderie and what have you. But
I mean, people like Johnny in particular, he's a massive success story. You know, from obviously his beginnings. I think he maybe lost his first 3 or 4 pro fights, and obviously just hearing the stories from Johnny himself, you know, interviews and stuff, you know, about him boxing, and I think he were probably the same, you know, a bit timid, you know, a little bit scared, but he overcome that, and I think he still owns the record, doesn't he? He's maybe longest reigning cruiserweight world champion, so that's some success story, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So 15 first amateur fight. How long did you fight as an amateur then?
So I went till I was 23. I turned pro when I was 23. Again, as an amateur, you know, I wasn't. I think what I lacked in terms of natural ability, I just made up. I made that up in terms of just work ethic. Do you know what I mean? I always trained hard. I was just dedicated all the way through my career. You know, just dedicated, like, and I just remember, like, when you watch, you know, like Rocky when you're little and stuff, and you watch other fighters, and they're getting up in the morning at like 4 a.m. and doing the road work, and I just thought that was what you've got to do, and it is. Do you know what I mean? So
it's interesting because, I mean, it's that old Ronaldo Messi debate. Sorry to bring football into it.
No.
It's what I know better, but you know, for me, I always go Ronaldo because
Yeah.
Messi is that natural,
That's it.
natural guy. Looks like he gets out of bed whenever he wants, and he's just got it at his fingertips. Ronaldo looks like he's had to try every day of his life to be, and that's why for me, even if just mentally, he's the stronger of the two.
And it's that discipline in it. It's just doing everything, right. And I just felt like that's something that I did always through my career. I was always very dedicated. Even from being young, from being a teenager. I was very dedicated. So yeah, but I didn't have a standout amateur career. I had 45 fights, and I literally won one more than I lost. So my record was like 123, lost 22. Literally 50-50 record.
But do you not think? I mean, like I've talked to my old boss about this quite a lot, and because it was before my era, but he once lent me a DVD where it were like Hitman Earns, Hagler, Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran, and whatnot. And them guys just weren't bothered about losing. And don't you think boxing's become a little bit too protective over losing game?
It has, because I just think, especially professional boxing. Amateur boxing,
it's a learning curve anyway.
In a way, that's kind of what it's for. It's like your apprenticeship, before you turn pro. So that's where you're going to lose. It's where you're going to learn. But the professional side, it's a business, and it's turned more to it being like the show business side to it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
it's become, dare I say it, become a bit like wrestling for me. Like it's all that fake. I think back to like David A and Chisora and that beef they had.
I know,
and now they're like Bezos. And, it's just like, come on. It's all about selling tickets and stuff.
Yeah, I think the big majority of it is about selling tickets, but obviously you do get real rivalry.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. It's big egos, isn't it?
Ben and Eubank don't like each other. No. Do you know what I mean? They just.
But I weren't going to go there, but as soon as you bring it into it, I've always quite liked Eubank, but don't you think it was like that last fight? What a narcissist for him to like say he's not coming, and then rock up in.
I get you. Yeah,
I just thought
Eubank Senior. Yeah,
I just thought, what a prick.
And he were probably always coming, weren't he?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's sort of like suturing. Everyone's watching it, as if he's not coming, blah blah. And then he rocks up and he's like, "You're Rastafari."
Yeah. All that. But I think, and then it makes you wonder, like, were Eubank Junior in on that? Did he know it were all a plan, or?
It gets to the point where I'm that much of a cynic. Did Ben know about it?
I know what you mean. Yeah, you'd like to think not, wouldn't you?
Eddie Hearn know about it. Is it all contrived?
It'd be good if they said what it is, and it would just a father and son, getting together again, which is brilliant, isn't it? But obviously,
it shocked me the result. It shocked me how well, because it seemed rigged against Eubank. Everything. Yeah. Everything seemed to be. So I was surprised how well he handled it.
To be honest with you, I hadn't enjoyed a fight like that in ages. I loved that fight. Just when you're like enthroned in the fight and it goes fast, like that 12.
Yeah, well, again, nowadays it's like watching a movie. You've got your phone in front of you, and before you know it, you're But like you say, I'd not got my phone, and I was just sort of like into it.
But I thought it was a brilliant fight. Definitely lived up to all the hype, and then we've got rematch, haven't we? In 2 weeks, haven't we?
And again, they'd start all that talk starts.
So this next couple of weeks, there should be some entertain.
Were you a bit like that in the run up to matches? For me, again, bringing David A into it, I remember the Klitschko David A fight, and I just loved Klitschko. Just didn't get involved in any of his like tomfoolery.
I know what you
just
mean.
Sort of like, I'm here to box and blah blah blah. Yeah. And then obviously David A, I find him the world champ of excuses, to be fair. He's always got a reason why it didn't go his way. But I like the fact that Klitschko just didn't get dragged into it and took care of business. Kind of thing. Were you in the headspace of sort of getting into people's heads?
No, never. I would just like this.
You are who you are.
And I couldn't pretend. It'd have probably helped me in my boxing career if I did pretend, or be a bit more outspoken, or being a bit controversial. But it's just not in me. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't walk into my mum and dad's and and look my mum in the eye if I were like, do you know what I mean? She'd be just like, what you've been saying on that
box your
interview.
ears in that.
Yeah, but it's just like, you know, if I were shooting my mouth off and swearing in interviews and press conferences and that, my mum would say like, what you doing? Do you know what I mean? So I just couldn't be anything that I'm not. But again, I suppose, especially now with social media and everything, controversy it seems to sound, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's what people want, but you know.
But I think it's one of them where if you're appealing to masses, probably going wrong route. You're better off being authentic and being to yourself.
So. I think so. Yeah, no matter what. And then I think if you, you know, the problem with being controversial and doing the talking is you've got if you don't back it up, you've got a long fall.
Yeah, there's that. You know what I mean? Have you seen that? You've probably seen it. That Pakistani lad who sort of like. It's that video where he's like dancing to the ring
and he gets knocked out.
30 seconds
I've seen it. Yeah.
I mean,
but I think, you know, it's like I said, if you shoot your mouth and you say I'm going to do this and you're insulting people and all that, when you do lose, it's hard for people to it's hard for the masses to kind of sympathise with you in it then. Because you made your bed, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think Tyson Fury's gone that way in the end. You know, he's been again. I find him the world champion of shithousery.
Yeah.
In the end, now the fact that he's watching those fights back and saying, "I won them," come on.
Yeah. I think he's one of them Tyson where he just kind of he'll probably just say whatever comes into his head at the time. Do you know what I mean? But I think
you met him or
I've never met. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously it's a
been in the same circle.
Yeah, I saw him at Ricky Hatton's funeral, so that obviously that were a somber setting. But yeah, I saw him then. But he's just everyone loves him. I love him. You know.
I mean,
he's a character.
Yeah, I mean, boxing's been a different sport with him.
And again, I think you see you get what you see, don't you, from him? You know, he might.
I like his dad.
John. Yeah. I actually did. It was in Sheffield. God, it was a few years back now, but they did an evening with John Fury. It were at G Casino at Queen's Road.
All right. Who organised that? Do you know?
I can't remember who organised it now, off the top of my head. But I just won British title, so they asked me to kind of go and not a joint evening with him, like it was me and him, but kind of be a guest with him. So like me and my wife Charlie, like we went and we had a night with him. So he's a nice man. Do you know what I mean? It's just a nice man.
Again, I mean, my dad would say him like a bit of a performer, like when he's got an audience. Like, so that all of that on me, you know, like, I think that's a bit of a persona.
Of course, of course it is.
Projecting.
To a certain extent, I think a lot of boxers do that. You know, it's a bit of persona,
pounding your chest thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but if it's like there seems to be like a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff at minute, which I don't mind that. I just feel like if you're funny, if you're just being funny, and it's making people laugh, I think that's a good thing. Obviously, if you're offending people, or you're digging people out, that's another thing, isn't it? But I just think if you're having a bit of a laugh during your persona, I think that people tend to follow it and they enjoy it. So I don't think there's all wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I do liken it sometimes to wrestling though.
Yeah,
like back in the WWF, where they're having
it probably is going that way, boxing. Do you know what I mean? But especially with this, with Riyadh season and stuff, and the money in boxing now is just unbelievable.
This might be controversial, but I love that the Joshua fight, and like you've got Wembley crowded, but then for me it's a step over the line when we've got Saudi Arabian national anthem at Wembley.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
nobody from Saudi Arabia is fighting or whatever, and I'm like, have we just sold the sport to Saudi Arabia now?
I know that's the thing. It's the fine line between with it being all about the money. You know what I mean?
And not only that, like Dubois like almost cap in hand asking him if he can fight him. So it feels like it's orchestrated. Like it's not even nothing's done without their say. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like
for me, it's like if you're a fighter who gets a call off them, or if you're one of the main fighters who's in the mix, you're not going to be complaining, are you? Because why would you? you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, as much as I'm saying it's gone the way of wrestling, the one thing that WWF wrestling, because I clearly used to watch it as a kid.
Right, yeah.
The one thing that's got, which I've always said boxing should have, is the boxer doesn't get to choose who they fight, or the wrestler doesn't. And I think that is how it should be. You know, like he's coming down the track. He's the number 2. Right, you've got to fight him, and you've got to fight him within this period of time. And if you don't, you have to relinquish.
And
belts.
that's true.
I think there's too much of a like whoever the sort of like stronger fighter is gets to have all of the sort of advantages.
I know what you mean.
I mean, again, it's old school, but like when Sugar Ray fought Hagler, everything were in his favour. Size at ring and everything, and it's like when you're rigging system against, there shouldn't be that in my personal opinion.
It should just be
dictated to them. This is it. Yeah, exactly. That's what
I know what you mean.
Personally,
and I think probably UFC is a bit more like that, isn't it? In terms of
it's very brutal. I mean, I've not watched it, but have you seen that? Again, Johnny's had a few of these bare knuckle guys on. Have you seen?
I think I've seen a few clips. Yeah. I think he had Joe Lister on, didn't it?
Looks mental.
Yeah.
I mean, like you were talking about before, you get in a ring, you get punched without gloves on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can only imagine.
It must be so different. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of boxers. I mean, Johnny's saying there's a lot of boxers want to try it, but they're like, and he's almost warning against it, saying it ain't what you've been doing. This whole discipline bit.
I'd call it.
It's a brawl.
Completely different. It's a different mindset. And I'd say, I mean, it is brutal because obviously you get cut to shreds, don't you?
Mm.
In a way, though, I don't know if that's safer than boxing because I know that sounds mad, but I just think when you've got 8 or 10 ounce gloves on, do you know what I mean? And you go and it's a 12-round fight, and you're taking shots. You might not get cut up as much, you know what I mean? But you're absorbing more punches, more total punches. You know what I mean? Which is obviously checking your brain, which obviously ain't a good thing. So I think you've got more chance at probably getting real damage, as in brain, to your brain and stuff through boxing. Whereas if you're bare knuckle, if after a couple of shots have landed, you're cut to shreds. That fight might not be lasting another couple of minutes.
Again, a lot of it like boils down to the referees being on.
Yeah, of course.
Because with boxing, we've all seen fights where it's gone on for too long.
Oh God, 100%.
And if you had that situation in bare knuckle, then people aren't going to be getting up in the morning, are they?
No, of course not.
You mentioned that you'd gone from being an amateur to a pro, sort of 23 years old.
23. Yeah.
What were you doing work-wise in that sort of time period?
So I had a couple of jobs. I mean, I left school. And like I said, I didn't really know what I was going to do, to be honest, because I was boxing amateur, obviously, when I was leaving school.
Yeah.
And my dream was to be a professional boxer. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, I had to work alongside training. So I did 2 years plumbing at Castle College because my dad were a plumber.
Yeah.
So I just kind of.
It's probably one of the only jobs that will still exist in.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I know that's it. So I did 2 years plumbing at Castle College, and I was saying to someone the other day, I wish I'd have
kept it up.
No, not kept it up, but just learned something out of it. I didn't absorb all. Do you know what I mean? I was just doing it. Not that I didn't want to do it, but I was just doing it as kind of just to pass a couple of years or whatever, or to say I was doing something while I was training in boxing. But I wish I'd have picked a few things up.
I mean, you're 16-year-old, 17-year-old, you don't know what you want to do. You're just getting through the day, and it's like life's, for me personally, I was just more bothered about where I was going at that night or whatever.
And again, I just had a laugh at college. Yeah. Like, obviously, I went.
What I'm saying is it's easy now when you're in your 30s to look back and think,
of course it is. I know what you mean.
But really, back then you were living your best life.
Of course I were, pal. Yeah, 100%. So like I said, I went to college for a couple of years. I actually, when I was about 18, I got a job at Frankie and Benny's.
Right. I worked at Frankie and Benny's for a very short period of time. Literally, because I was a waiter. I'd been a waiter already, and they had them massive...
Yeah, them massive trays.
Waiters, massive trays, and I was just like... I thought I were a clumsy way to it, and I just thought at some point so it weren't for me.
I started there when I was 18, and like I said, it was just a job. Do you know what I mean? I started off cleaning tables, and then I ended up like being a waiter. I must have been worst waiter in Wales. Honestly, you wouldn't have wanted me in waiting on you, like dropping trays and all that, and forgetting stuff. But I had a laugh. You know, I met some good people there. Just had a laugh for a couple of years, and then I ended up moving on from there. And I got a job labouring. This is all while I was boxing amateur, you know. So I was just steadily going through my amateur career, and like the last kind of job I had, I was just a labourer for S10 Property Solutions, Scott Hill, and I was with his bricky Jim, and just labouring for him, which I enjoyed. But again, I look back and I just think, why didn't you just pick a few bits up? Do you know what I mean? Not that I'm going to be a bricklayer or a plumber, but I just think it's only. I mean, I can't do all. I mean, my wife, like, she doesn't have a go at me, but I know it probably annoys her. I'm not DIY.
No, I'm same as you. But not that. I mean, it's time. That's another podcast, maybe. But that's what school should be. You know, like all we're doing at school is learning. Of course. We're learning.
I agree.
Redundant sort of skills and sort of dated, questionable history. And for me, I'm just sort of like, we should be, sewing, or as after it sounds, just practical skills. Well, why are we not teaching that? That should be on curriculum, like you said.
Well, I do a day at a school. So on a Tuesday, I'm at Dinnington High School, because they've got like a boxing program. So they've got a boxing gym on the school site. So I just coach boxing all day with kids. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, fantastic for kids. I'm not just saying that because of boxing, but I just think it helps them at school, especially kids who are having a bit of trouble and stuff. But I was talking to them about that exact thing. But I think there should be like a bit of a branch off. You know, when you get to a certain year in school, I think maybe year 9 or 10, probably at least, where you can kind of just branch off into stuff that takes your interest, like construction or like cooking, and just like learn a skill or a couple of skills before you leave school. I think that, instead of just learning to try and pass in
that's what I mean. All you're doing really is memorising stuff that you'll never use or remember.
Yeah, that's it. So I was brave, really, in a sense, because I got to 23, and like I said, I'd done maybe 2 or 3 years labouring, and I were turning pro. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to turn pro, and I just thought, if I'm going to do it, I just want to have no regrets, and I just want to do everything that I possibly can to be a success. Do you know what I mean? Or to win titles and whatever. And I packed in. I packed in my job, and I turned pro. I managed to get a few sponsors. It weren't much. It just put a bit of fuel in my car. Bought me a bit of shopping and stuff. But
how did he do that? How did he recruit the sponsors? Or?
I think probably. I mean, Nick Firth Tyons. He were probably. I'd say he were probably my first sponsor. One of, if not my first sponsor. Yeah, Nick Firth is. Yeah. Nick Firth helped me massively during in my career. A good man, Nick. So he was one of my sponsors. A couple of others, Gary Siddons, civil engineering, he sponsored me. A few little, small.
Are they just family friends or?
Yeah, well, mainly through the gym, mainly through Sheffield Boxing Centre. Yeah. So Nick Firth had known,
they might have sponsored other
that's it. So they'd known, probably Glyn for years, sponsored the gym, just all through that really. Yeah. So it was just like a natural progression. AJ, who was actually Dennis Hobson's nephew, AJ Hobson. So he's got Innovation Alloys. He was one of my first sponsors. And he actually, he were promoting, sorry pal.
No, go.
He were promoting it at the time I turned pro. So my first probably, I'd say 4 fights was on AJ Hobson's shows. So like I said, he always did a lot for me throughout my boxing career. But like I said, it was probably brave. And I don't think, to be honest with you, I think, there's 2 sides of boxing. If you're a flyer as an amateur and you're a national champion and you're boxing for England, you're going to turn pro and you're going to get offers from big promoters. Mm-hmm. So obviously you'll get you'll sign with a big promoter, you'll get big sponsorships. You're going to be able to train full time. You don't need to work.
Yeah.
I think if you're on the other end of boxing, like I was, I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping a job when you turn pro. Just because I did it, maybe I'm not recommending young pros to do that. Because you start off, you're boxing your 4-rounders. Maybe stepping up to 6-rounders. You can afford to keep working. It's going to get to a point where obviously you're going to have to probably, well, you're going to have to train full time. But until you get to that point, like, title level and taking things a bit more seriously, English titles, British titles. But I think up till then, I think you can manage a job. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but I think it is doable.
But again, it ties into that. It helps. You're already that disciplined person who's up in the morning and doing training and all the rest of it.
So I don't think it'll do you any harm, to keep a job going while you're boxing.
Yeah. So that first professional fight, then I imagine that's still fresh in the memory, is it?
Yeah. So
where was that?
So that were at Magna. I made my debut at the Magna in Rotherham. I believe it was 30th of July 2016, and it were on Sam Sheedy's undercard.
Was it main event?
Yeah, Sam Sheedy where he fought Andrew Robinson. It were a 10-rounder at middleweight. I think it was Sam's first fight at middleweight, maybe. So 4 rounds against Sergey Tasimov, who were called. I think he was from Serbia, maybe. He's not around anymore, but he was quite an old guy actually. I think he was in his 40s when I boxed him. Do you know what I mean? So he was like quite an old journeyman.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that were it. They say you never forget your pro debut.
How did you get on? Did you?
I won 4. Yeah, I won 4 rounds, 40 points, 36. Yeah, and I just basically listened to Glyn. Just stuck to me boxing. Didn't do all daft. Won the rounds. Just boxed nicely. Basically just getting that first one out of the way. It all came around quite fast though, to be honest with you, because I think my medicals and everything when I turned pro, they only came through like two weeks before that. So then, or maybe it might have been 3 weeks. So
you didn't know who you were fighting?
I didn't know. I didn't know I was boxing on. Obviously, I was training. I was thinking I'm going to be making my debut soon. And then I got my medicals through. And then AJ were like, well, you're going to box on Sam's undercard then. So I was like, sound. So I was like 3 weeks.
And how many were there? How many were in?
It was a good crowd. Do you know what I mean? Sam sung a lot of tickets. I sung a good few tickets for my pro debut.
Friends and family.
Friends and family, a lot just. And
that's why I've never done that white collar boxing. You've got to like commit to getting all your mates to get you.
That's it.
Watch it get beat up.
Yeah, that's it. But no, it was a good night. It was a good night. I remember my first amateur fight and my first pro fight. Them two you're never going to forget.
Are there any fights that I mean, we've all got in car and driven somewhere, and you're there and you think, how did I get here? Have you had any fights like that?
As in terms of just. In terms of what?
You just don't remember, like you get to end of the fight and you think,
God, yeah. Most of my fights. I don't know what other boxers are like, but I don't really remember any of my fights. I remember little snippets of them. I don't know whether it's like the adrenaline, that adrenaline, and because your body's kind of, I suppose, it's in fight or flight, innit? So it's a bit of trauma, innit? So I don't know whether that. All the adrenaline kind of dulls your memory of the fight. I don't know, but I can't remember.
It's like women forgetting the pain of pregnancy, innit, and childbirth.
Yeah.
Puts it back in your mind.
Again, that might be a similar thing because their own adrenaline and everything. It must just numb you.
I mean, you mentioned earlier, and I thought it, but didn't want to cut across you. But you mentioned about your amateur career, where you had one more win than you lost. But for me, it's like anything in life. You learn way more when you lose.
God, yeah.
And I'm assuming that your firm memories are probably when you got, when you've left your guard down and got chinned or.
Yeah, well, it just shapes you. Do you know what I mean? And again, there's been, there were times during my amateur career where I think at one point I lost like maybe 6 or 7 in a row. Do you know what I mean? And this was I might have been maybe 19 or 20, and you know, or maybe a bit younger. But just thinking to myself, because I love boxing, you know what I mean? I loved it, and it's what I wanted to do. But then you do doubt yourself, and you start to think, look, what am I doing wrong here? Do you know what I mean? But I just think that that's just them sort of times just shape you, don't they? They shape you as a boxer in my case, and they shape me as a person as well. But that's what I'd say to any young amateurs out there who might be going through a bit of a sticky patch, coming off a few losses or things just aren't going right. Just stay the course. Just keep doing what you're doing. Just train hard. Dedicate everything to it. If you love it, just be disciplined. Put the dedication in, and like the tide won't turn. Do you know what I mean? It's a long sticky patch, but the tide won't turn. I'm the proof of that. Do you know what I mean? I really am the proof of that. As an amateur, I don't care what you said. I don't think probably anyone in Sheffield or anywhere else would have probably thought that I'd go on to be a British Commonwealth and international champion as a pro. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I weren't one of them standout kids. I'm not saying I were bad, but they were better kids than me. They were flashier kids than me in amateurs. But I just stayed the course. Just literally stayed the course.
What's the title that you were most proud of winning?
God, it's got to be me British. Winning that Lonsdale
What age were you at that point?
So that was 2021, 28. So, but it weren't just that. It was what made it more special were probably the build up to that. So I was coming off 2 back-to-back losses when I won my British title. So the first one were my first loss, which were, I don't know if you remember the car park fight. So it were like December 2020.
Right.
Like bang in middle of the first lockdown.
No.
Yeah, and Dennis, like credit to Dennis, do you know what I mean? Just had this inventive idea.
Dennis who, sorry?
Dennis Hobson.
Right.
Dennis Hobson. So Dennis was.
So is that AJ Hobson's?
That's
son
that's AJ's uncle. But obviously Dennis is promoted for years and years. Do you know what I mean? He's been spells where he were at the top of the sport. He promoted Ricky out, and he took Ricky to Vegas. And he's a well-known Sheffield, promoter. Fight academy. And like I said, so Dennis managed and promoted me throughout all my career. And then, like I said, I mean, I was due to box for an IBO world title. So that'd have been IBO world flyweight title, and it was meant to be March 2020. And then obviously
about kibosh then.
Yeah, so literally about 11 days before, Prime Minister made that announcement, lockdown. So obviously everything were.
And you never got another.
I never got another crack, unfortunately. And I never got another crack. Things just turned out a little bit different. Went down a few different avenues, but so the December after that March lockdown, I think boxing had maybe just come back behind closed doors. So like your Frank Warren and your Eddie were doing them back garden shows.
Yeah.
And like I said, there were no fans there. Everything was behind closed doors. So Dennis just had this mad idea. So like drive-in cinemas. He was like, well, why don't we do a drive-in boxing show? So everyone's separate. They're in their own little bubble, which is the car.
Yeah.
They're going to drive in, park up, rings outside in open, obviously with a canopy and stuff, and they watch it. So he must have had to jump through some hoops with with British Boxing Board to do it. We all COVID safety protocols and all that, but he managed to put it together. So credit to him. So made a bit of history, but it was the first ever drive-in boxing show in Britain.
Where was that?
That were in Sheffield Arena car park.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about
that. Yeah. You see, I mean, the fight, if anyone wants to watch the fight, it was live on Eurosport. Eurosport picked it up.
Right.
So it was live on Eurosport. The fight's on YouTube, but that was the fight where I did my rotator cuff in the third round. What happened were just going back a little bit. When lockdown happened and COVID happened, me and Dennis were so there's obviously going to be no international fights for quite a while now. So let's get his domestic head on and let's pursue the British title, because I thought we're only going to be boxing domestic opponents here. They're not going to be able to fly anyone in and stuff. So we went down the route of pursuing a British title. The British title fight were getting made, but the opponent I had for that, he kept pulling out, and this went on for quite a while. So it'd get to like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the fight, and he'd pull out. So in the end, the borders opened up a little bit, and Dennis were like, right, we can't get anyone for the British title at the minute. So he got me in for an IBF Intercontinental title, which were brilliant. That had got me like a top 15 ranking in the IBF governing body. So I fought Hugo Guineros from Mexico. So he brought him in. So this were I think it were 12 rounds. I think it were 12 rounds. And then, like I said, third round of that fight, I threw a shot and I just kind of felt something going in my shoulder. It was a bit weird, actually. It weren't like an obvious pain, but just when something weren't right.
Yeah.
And then I went to throw another shot, and it was just kind of like there was nothing in my shoulder, like no power.
You're left-handed as well, or?
I'm right-handed, so obviously this is me left with my jabbing hand. Do you know what I mean? I think it must have been a jab or an up where it went, and it just felt a bit funny, just kind of little twangs. You know what I mean? So I just tried to shake it off. And as the rounds went on, it seized up more and more. And I think, like the round after that, especially 2 rounds after that, so from round 5, 4 or 5 onwards, I was only using my right hand. And I weren't actually doing that bad, to be honest with you. I think at the time, the Mexican, he didn't know what I was doing. I think he must have thought it was a bit of a tactic or something. But I were winning some rounds one-handed. But I think when the penny dropped with the Mexican that I'd done my shoulder,
he attacked it.
He just jumped on me a bit. He just jumped on me a bit, and I think he was just kind of outworking me a little bit. Just when I was just feeling the round slipping away. I weren't doing bad, but as the fight progressed, I was probably getting caught a little bit more, and I just felt like the rounds were slipping.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the end of the 8th or end at 9. I think it was end at 9th actually, and Glyn pulled me out. Well, that would be.
And that would be before the British.
Yeah. So like I said, so that was that. That was my first loss. I'd done my shoulder, so I was devastated.
How long were you out for that then?
Well, that's the thing. So I had the rematch. I jumped straight back into the rematch with the Mexican, to rematch for the IBF Intercontinental. So this would have been the June after. So you're talking maybe 6 months after. And in all honesty, that I rushed. I needed more time with that shoulder. Do you know what I mean? I needed more time. It wouldn't have hurt me to maybe take a little six rounder in between, just to kind of to get it back. But I wanted it. I wanted to kind of revenge that loss. I wanted the IBF, Intercontinental title, and I just jumped straight back in, probably a bit naively, and I think because my shoulder wasn't 100%, and I knew it in the back of my mind, I think that kind of that affected the game plan for that fight, and it was basically boxing and moving.
Yeah.
But I just did too much boxing and moving in that fight, and I don't know whether it was a bit of a miscalculation from Glyn, probably me as well, maybe it was both. I think we just got the game plan slightly off for that fight. And I was boxing well, up to a certain point, but then I think, round about the halfway point was the time where I needed to set my feet more and really cement it, because you're not forgetting that the Mexican's the champion now. Do you know what I mean? So he's just beat me. So he's the champion. He's the IBF Intercontinental champion. So I just, don't get me wrong, when the final bell rang in my heart, I truly believe, and I do to this day, not that I've watched it back a lot, I don't think, but I thought I'd done enough.
Yeah.
But the problem I had is I tried to nick it, and you can't do that. Not at that level of the sport. You can't just try and nick it. You've got to cement it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I lost on a split decision. So that were two back-to-back losses. And like, if I were gutted after that first loss, I was on like rock bottom after that. So like I said, it was just a kind of thing where, like, where do I go from here? Do you know what I mean? And this is where I've got to give props to Dennis Hobson and Steve Crump, who were Dennis's business partner, and they both promoted me together. And just giving them props, because you've got to remember, although Dennis has been to them heights, you know, he promoted Ricky out and he took him to Vegas, but you know, he's obviously not in the mix of the big promoters right now. Obviously, it's Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. And Dennis Hobson hasn't got the budget that them two have got. You know what I mean? So he's kind of on the other side of boxing, doing small own shows. So for them to, number one, to put on that driving show, which were just mad anyway, and then obviously to get the Mexican back over for the rematch, for him to put the faith in me, you're talking money, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? They've got to pay him to come over as the champion. They've got to pay for the show. That were another outside show. It were on other end at Car Park, the rematch. They were actually really good shows, though, to be honest with you. And during that time, so that were like 2021, you know, that were, you know, boxing were kind of back, but we were restrictions. And that's why it had to be outside. But they created, you know, Dennis and Fight Zone, who were putting the shows on, they created like a bit of a buzz around them shows. It were good. So, but then, like I said, I've got to give thanks to Dennis. You know, he kept the faith in me, and obviously after that rematch, I were absolutely gutted. You know, I think I went away for a few nights with Charlie, and I just got a bit of a feeling like
Charlie missus.
Yeah. She's my wife now. You know, then she was my girlfriend, but I just got a feeling like people were writing me off. You know what I mean? Just kind of saying, you know, that's basically it for Tommy. Where's he go from here? Sort of thing.
Yeah. And you hear those conversations all the time, don't you? And normally from people who don't really know what they're talking about.
Well, that's it, innit? Yeah. But you know, just when you've got a bit of and I just had a bit of a feeling. I thought people are writing me off here, and I had that fire inside me, and I had that fire because I knew certain things ain't gone right. I knew my shoulder weren't 100%. I knew I had more to give, and I was really hungry. Do you know what I mean? So I just basically said to Dennis, I was like, look, Dennis, I know I'm probably going to have to just do a 6-rounder or an 8-rounder next just to get back winning. But just get me out as fast as you can. I'm just going to get straight back in the gym. And that's what I did. Just get me on next show. So that's what he did. I think I was penciled in for like an 8-rounder. But what happened was, before the 2 fights with the Mexican, we were pursuing the British title.
Yeah.
And it was through no fault of my own that British title fight didn't happen. You know, the opponent kept pulling out. So I was in for the British, which was still vacant at this point. And then it were probably about 5 weeks before the show, which I was just going to box a 6-rounder, I think. And Dennis were like, I've got you a new opponent for the British title, and the board have sanctioned it. If you want the British title next, you can have it. And I was like, yeah.
Let's do it.
So, and then that was that. I fought Matt Wyndham. I think that was 21st of September, 2021. No, it weren't. It was 18th September, I think, 18th. And I won the British title, which for me.
What were the crowd doing then? Beeping their horns or what?
What in that car park fight? It was crazy. It was mad. Yeah, literally that. So you imagine getting introduced, and instead of cheers, it were literally car horns going all the fight. Which obviously during the fight you're not noticing much because you're in the fight, aren't you? But the whole thing was just mad. I actually we went to that very car park last week. They've got that fair on in car park. So I were there, and so it just brought back a few memories of that.
As I say, I looked, or as I told you before we started recording, I was looking at your fight record, and probably not great memories, but I watched your last fight, which it did seem pretty bit of a brutal fight, and then obviously that was a couple of years ago. Obviously, never decided to fight beyond that. Did you already feel that it was the start of the end? Or
yeah, I did. To be honest, it was probably like it was a bit of a slow burner, I think, towards the end of my career, because I think, basically, making flyweight were killing me for a few years, and that's probably one of my regrets.
Because you were naturally heavier than that?
Yeah,
now?
just because I know I'm small in stature, but like for a flyweight, I'm looked on as quite being big. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I were big for the weight. So I think in hindsight, that's probably one of my little regrets from my career, not moving up weight earlier. Up. I think basically after I won the British title, I at least I should have moved up to super flyweight. I think I were even big enough to do bantamweight. And I think if I'd have done that, I'd have probably squeezed a bit more out of my career. But as the years were rolling on, and the fights weren't being as frequent. I'd be training for fights and they'd get pulled at last minute, and it's like so certain fights just kept going on and on and on. So and all the while I were kind of drastically outgrowing the weight. Do you know what I mean? So I think, and like I said, I lost my British title to Jay Harris, who's a brilliant boxer. He's a great guy as well, Jay. But again, I'm not making excuses. Do you know what I mean? But I just truly believe that if I was at the weight, if the weight wasn't so much of an issue for me, I believe I would have won them fights. I do.
So that's why I looked at that Eubank Ben fight, and sort of thought, because it were stacked against him, weren't it, going down to the weight that he was trying to get to, and it looked quite sort of
and it's just
drained almost, not as strong or powerful. Certainly before the fight, but obviously
it's so dangerous. Honestly, I can't tell you how dangerous it is. Like fighters making weight, and that's another piece of advice I'd give to young pros. Don't try and hit a certain weight or get down to a certain weight just because you can, because you've got to consider whether you can still perform at the weight. Because it's like, if it's all right you making a weight, but if your performance is suffering, the advantage from making that weight and being the bigger man, that advantage leaves you, because you're taking away from your performance. Do you know what I mean? So you've got, I'd rather fighters move up a weight and just be full and strong and not dehydrated, and maybe lose a little bit of a size advantage. But again, you're talking fine margins. But yeah, I'd say fighters making weight. Obviously, boxing's a weight making sport, and you're never going to get away from that. But you've got to do it correctly, and you've just got to make sure that you are at the optimum weight for you, instead of trying to cut. Basically, after I lost my British title to Jay Harris, that were me done at flyweight, absolutely done. And I still had that bit of desire, I thought, to obviously move up weight, be more comfortable at a weight, or maybe even 2 weights above, and then maybe pursue winning a British title at another weight, or maybe go for a Commonwealth. I still had that bit of desire in me to do that. And what happened I got the call for the U5 fight, which we weren't expecting. I were done it. I said I'd never box at flyweight again. Do you know what I mean? And then, but it was just, we got offered the fight, and it were like, I've gone all my career craving an opportunity like this, on a big show, on a big stage, and obviously the money. Do you know what I mean? So it were like, I couldn't turn it down. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't, in my mind, and again, this might have been probably, just the end of my boxing career kind of creeping up on me, because I think by that time I was probably just a bit worn out as well, just from constantly training, and then fights falling through, and then just going on and on, and I was probably just a bit drained, a bit burnt out. So but I had to take the fight. You know what I mean? And it was just, but it's just more embarrassing, than all. I think as a fighter, probably apart from getting absolutely knocked out, flat on your back, getting stopped in the first round, probably a fighter's one of a fighter's worst nightmares. You know what I mean? So it was more just embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? It was more embarrassing. But I were in with former Olympic gold medalist. Do you know what I mean? Were I ever going to beat Glyn Yafai? No, of course I weren't. But I didn't I didn't believe that. I genuinely, and you call me delusioned or old, but I genuinely thought, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I thought I was going to cause an upset. I just think...
we were just talking about like the ego and the sort of like camaraderie. We were talking earlier about it and what have you. And I remember when Ricky Hatton was fighting Mayweather.
Yeah.
And, I were working with a lot of guys and they were like, oh yeah, Ricky Hatton's going to beat Mayweather and what have you. And I didn't think for a second Ricky Hatton could beat Mayweather. And I was even saying to them, I was like, I don't think Ricky Hatton thinks he can beat Mayweather. Like, and do you think he thought, like, I know you were a youngster.
Ricky thought he'd beat Mayweather 100%.
Did he?
Yeah, 100%.
Because even when I was watching it, I was thinking, I don't even think he thinks he can win it.
No,
I think.
Yeah, I think 100% he did. He did, and I think, I mean...
And to be honest with you, the referee didn't help him.
No, absolutely.
Again, in what we were talking about earlier, where Mayweather obviously held all the purse strings.
Yeah.
And
the referee had a bad night, and that obviously affected that particular fight. But I think Ricky 1000% thought he was going to beat Mayweather, and I thought he was right to do so. I think I'm not saying it would have beat him. If the circumstances, as in like if the fight were allowed to flow a bit more, it might have turned out to be a bit.
I mean, it was shocking.
I'm not saying it would have beaten him.
I mean, any chance of him winning were ruined straight away.
Yeah, he didn't have anything in his favour, did he? For his style. But I thought, his style and his like, ferocity. It did cause Mayweather problems, and I think if the fight was allowed to flow more, it would have caused him more problems. Whether he would have beat him, I don't know. But I 100% believe that he thought he was going to beat him. And I think as a fighter, again, to the outside world, you might be delusional, but I just think that's the way you think as a fighter.
And again, I suppose you've got to have that delusion, that confidence in the, or it's not for you, is it?
Yeah, of course. And like I said, going into...
that can be equally dangerous, I guess, because if you get in ring with people who fundamentally
well, obviously that's what your corner's for. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, Glyn saved me in that last fight, because no one knows you better than your team. You know what I mean? So obviously in that first round, I mean again, I'm not making excuses. No way on this earth am I saying I'd have beat Glyn fight anyway. But the weight, again, I did the weight really good for that last fight. Probably the best I'd done it in a couple of years. But it still just took too much out of me. And the one thing that, not that I took a lot of shots in my career, but I was always known for being tough, for being like a small kid, for being a flyweight at Sheffield Boxing Centre, always sparring with heavier kids. I was just naturally kind of tough as the years go on, and I was known for taking a shot good. Not that I took a lot, but when I did, I was known for having a good chin. And my punch resistance went, it was literally that. The last fight was like seconds out, round one, he jumped on me, and the first combination he caught me with, like, buzzed me. I weren't massively hurt, like falling all over, but I was buzzed. Do you know what I mean? And I knew I was buzzed. My legs went like jelly. And obviously, he
So you're in survival mode straight away?
Yeah, because obviously, I'm just thinking, fucking hell, it's first round. I'm just trying to like ride it and trying to fucking tie him up or whatever. But he's an Olympic gold medalist, and he knew he'd done me. So obviously,
I mean, a lot of boxers like almost back off, don't they, and give people a bit too much room. Where as a fan, you're watching it thinking he's wobbling. You've got it. You want to.
Obviously, he knew he'd hurt me, so he jumped on me, and it was like before I knew it, it was just kind of.
It seemed to be in your ear a bit as well, like.
Well, I mean, is
that a common thing anyway? Or
no. So what
was there a bit of personal?
No,
beef
I tell you what happened with that. So, like on the build up to it, obviously Matt, the fight was promoted by Matchroom. So they came to the gym to do like segments on both me and your fight. So I mean, like we said earlier, I've never been one for talking and being a loudmouth. I think Glyn's the same. Do you know what I mean? He's quite a soft-spoken guy. Doesn't really like to talk a lot. So whether it were a little thing from Matchroom about just trying to get a bit of fire going, but I gave an interview in the gym, and Matchroom just basically, I don't blame him, because it's show business to sell tickets, so it's to put that bit of spice. but they basically just cropped the interview and just made it, just took what I said out of context.
Twisted it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. As in, like, I was saying that I was being a bit disrespectful towards him. Saying, like, just because you're an Olympic gold medalist don't mean, you're going to be a good pro and stuff like that. Which I suppose is true in a way, but I weren't saying it like that. But it got took out of context. So then obviously they've gone to your fight and said, oh, he said this, or they've shown him that. So he said, all right. So there were a bit of thing, not between me and Galal, personally. We didn't have any words at all, do you know what I mean? But I think that must have just planted a little seed in his head. So to be fair,
he definitely looks.
So to be fair, Matchroom probably did a good thing for their man. If they wanted to rile him up, they did it, didn't they? But as well as that, I think Glyn riled him up as well. Because like when we got to centre at ring, I think Glyn said something to him that he didn't like, which probably didn't do me any favours in hindsight. You know what I mean? So it's like sound.
So at that point, were you 30 then, or just coming up to 30?
I was 30, yeah. But like I said, he jumped straight on me, and my punch resistance weren't there. But listen, punch resistance or not, weight making or not, he might have still done me in the first round. You know what I mean? There's levels in boxing, isn't there? And obviously, I've definitely found that out. But as well as that, I think my like I said, like a slow burner leading up to it. But I think I just lost that bit of desire. And it was just basically an opportunity what I couldn't turn down, and I kind of knew that were it. After I did.
So you're 30 at that point, and
30.
What were you thinking about? Where do I go from here?
Yeah, I didn't really know. I mean, a few things had probably happened because, like, in the meantime, we'd had my wife now, Charlie, she was pregnant with our little girl then. Yeah. So when I fought you fight, I think she might have been about maybe 3 or 4 months pregnant. And that, obviously, that were in the back of my mind. But
was she on at you to quit
not
as well?
At all. No, my wife would have supported me no matter what. She always, a massive support to me.
You've been together a long time.
Yeah, we've been together like 12 years. We were 19 when we met. So all the way through my amateur career, through my pro career, she's been with me.
Yeah. And did she come to fights?
Yeah, she came to all my fights. Yeah. Just very, very blessed. I couldn't be luckier. If I tried with my wife. But like I said, I've been going to be a dad were in the back of my mind. And again, I started having thoughts which for boxers are definite red flags. Thoughts about, is this safest thing to be doing? Or what if I get hurt? And these are things what a professional fighter just can't have in their head. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If you're thinking that, get out. Do you know what I mean? It's not for you anymore. And that was probably the kind of, the thoughts I was thinking, about being a dad. And so, what if something bad happens? Just stuff like that. So, but again, I think that it were a perfect mix of things. Do you know what I mean? Me just being a bit worn out by then, the weight, becoming a dad. So it was just a storm of things.
And it's a sport that, we were talking about it before we started recording. A lot of people never know when to quit, do they? In this game, and there's a lot of people their legacy is really tarnished by the fact that they just kept coming back.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of sad stories in boxing, isn't there? Like there's too many sad stories in boxing, and I think and it is really sad because again it's such especially if you're boxed at a high level. And you're boxed on TV, and if you've earned good money, it's like it's hard to walk away, isn't it? And I think that's what a lot of fighters struggle with. And I mean, I'm like I said to you before we started, I'm very lucky in a way because I've realised that I haven't got that desire and I ain't got that fire anymore. And I've got out, and I'm able to happily say I am happily retired because I just know I ain't got it anymore. Whereas I could. Another fighter might try denying that and just keep going and then end up, getting some damage or so. Like I said, it's a very fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. And obviously, you know, personal training, is that something you'd already started doing?
Yeah, so I got my PT qualification. It was just like basically alongside my boxing career. You know,
and
when
that
I
was
were,
already in the back of your mind. That's what I want to do.
Not really, no. That were because I didn't. I mean, I've done the odd PT for years through our boxing. You know, throughout my boxing career. Sorry, I did. I might have done maybe 1 or 2 PTs a week. You know, just because I had the qualification, I could do it, and obviously I enjoyed doing it. But then, you know, basically on the build up to maybe my last couple of fights, and then after my last fight, that's when I just started doing it full time. And I love it, to be honest with you. You know, I coach boxing for fitness. You know, so
would you? I mean, we're in Sam's Sam Sheedy's gym.
Yeah.
Would you ever fancy having a boxing gym and actually being a boxing coach? Do you think?
You know, I think that'd probably be something for further down the line. You see, I were in a bit of a predicament because as soon as after my boxing career, obviously I'd just become a dad. And you know, our little girl, Connor, she's 19 months now. We've got another one on way as well. Wow. So early next year, we're going to be having a little boy. So I couldn't, you know, after years of boxing and being disciplined and like having to sacrifice, you know, time with family missing holidays, not being able to eat what I want. I couldn't think of anything worse than sacrifice, than having to give up, you know, a big chunk of my time. I want to put my family first, basically. You know, Charlie and kids. I just want to, you know, as much as I can, I want to enjoy this time. Yeah. And obviously, my coaching with the boxing fitness, that's my business. You know what I mean? That's my income. So I do that alongside, you know, my family time, and I've got a nice routine. I've got a nice rhythm. So I think at the minute I'm happy. You know, I'm at a few different places in Sheffield, you know, doing boxing fitness. You know, so no gym of my own for now, but that might be a future thing, you know. But I do, obviously, I've got my professional and my amateur coaching licenses, so I help John Fuchs out at Titans Boxing again when I can. So when I can, this is one of his fighters. Shout out Dylan Trevor. He's one of his pro fighters.
Tricky Trevor. That's his nickname,
Trevor. So
that
yeah.
Reading while you were chatting around.
That's it. But John's got some amazing talent in that gym. You know, amateurs, professionals.
I mean, we were talking off about sort of Sheffield having a bit of a sort of legacy in boxing, that's maybe a second capital of the country. Do you see that continuing for years to come?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, Sheffield will always, you know, provide talent. It's just been a conveyor belt, and I mean, obviously, the most famous is Brendan Ingong's gym, which we're not far away from here, actually.
I drove past it, actually.
Yeah. But and obviously that legacy for boxing in Sheffield, that will continue. You know, it's always going to be like a hotbed for talent. But yeah, like I said, John, he was a brilliant fighter. Everyone in boxing, you know, knows John Fuchs, and he's a fantastic coach. You know, and he's got a good stable of fighters. So like I said, every now and again, when I can, I'll try and put some time in and help him out. But yeah, just enjoying working and enjoying the other side of the ropes. And it's like, you know, the coaching with boxing fitness. I just think it's brilliant because I'm having some amazing results with my clients, and you know, helping them with, you know, if they need to lose, if they want to lose a few pounds and whatever, gaining confidence. Do you know what I mean? Learning a bit of boxing technique. You know,
and how are you recruiting clients? Is that through your socials?
Yeah, through social media. But what's good as well, so again, like I touched on earlier, you know, to young fighters, another piece of advice I'd say is, you know, use social media to your advantage, because we're in a day and age where, you know, you're able to reach vast amounts of people, you know, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever. But, you know, as a young professional fighter, you know, get creating content, you know, document your training, document what you're eating, document your lifestyle, because there's people out there that want to see it. Yeah, but that's the way you've got to be. And again, it's using using what is available in this day and age to your advantage. And that's what I've done with my coaching. So as well as doing one-to-one coaching, I've created an online boxing fitness program. So it's completely virtual. So
and have you kept that? Have you lessened a little bit of that discipline in the last couple of years? You know, I'll have a few hours extra.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I think
two extra Yorkshire puddings on Sunday
naturally.
roast.
I mean, that's the first thing. I think for any fighter who's recently retired, they'll probably indulge on everything that they've been deprived of and stuff. You know, in regards to food.
Bit of Christmas cake and
and straight after I'd my last fight, for that probably 6 to 8 months, I probably went up in weight a little bit, probably more than I should have. But then that kind of balances out and you find a nice balance. But I've got a nice balance now. Boxing has given me, the mindset where I'm always looking after myself. So I'm always, and that's not a chore to me. That's just how I am as a person, and probably down to boxing. So I always like to look after myself. I like to exercise. I like to eat good food because it just makes me feel good. But obviously now I'm not a boxer anymore. I can have odd pint or I can have odd chocolate bar and stuff, which is nice. So just got a nice balance. But then like I said, creating an online boxing fitness program for people. So I send them workouts to do. They can do them from home, from the gym, and just giving them that bit of guidance around the nutrition, a few lifestyle things, drinking plenty of water, and a lot of mindset stuff. Again, what I've all learned through boxing, just having a strong mind and, being able to, persevere and, stuff like that. And I'm getting some amazing results for people, which is brilliant. 'Cause I'm helping people change their health. Do you know what I mean? And it's not just like a 6-week kind of lose as much body fat as you can and then that's it. It's like it's teaching people, little lifestyle habits, healthy habits, what they can do forever. You know what I mean? So hopefully, the things they're going to learn with me, they can do for the rest of their life. And again, they're not, my clients aren't professional boxers. They're not professional athletes. They're just normal people. So I think a lot of people have got like an idea where they take things to the extreme. So, if they like chocolate, they won't have chocolate for 6 weeks, and it's too extreme. It's not realistic.
I'm always something's got to be sustainable, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be sustainable.
No point doing anything for a week or 2 weeks if you're not going to keep it up long term.
That's it. So, like I said, like when they're on the program, we do like a weekly check-in, and they enjoy it. It's that bit of like accountability in it.
And you're in that sort of networking thing with Joe Patterson and what have you, aren't you?
So I hadn't seen Joe for a few months, but I went to school with Joe.
Oh, did you?
So yeah,
you've known him a long time.
He's a good lad, Joe. I think he's younger than me. He might have been a year or two younger than me, but I can remember him.
Good. I mean, like just ADH brain. Very impressive.
But he's doing well for himself, and like I said, I went down to their gym, what they've got, because they did like a bit of a networking event what I went to. Met a few people down there. So yeah, Joe's a good man. He's smashing it. Yeah. So just recently, I mean, obviously with my start in life, obviously I had open heart surgery when I was 5.
Oh, we didn't touch on that.
I know, yeah. So I had, so I was born with a hole in my heart. Wow. So they found that out when I was about 2, and then I had to wait till I was 5. So this is going like about 27 years ago. So at the time, the technology what they've got at the minute probably weren't around then. So I was just too small to be operated on, basically. So I had to wait till I was 5. So my mum and dad had to build me up, to having this.
And were you sort of functioning fine?
Yeah, well, I was fine. I was an healthy kid. I was absolutely healthy. I think probably the only symptom I had were my lips went a bit blue when it was cold. Which
I might have got a hole in my heart.
Well, I don't know, but I think there's extremes to it. I think mine went like really blue. Yeah. But apart from that, I was perfectly all right, running about and that. So like I said, I had the full, chest open heart surgery when I was 5, and then obviously made a full recovery. And then when I started getting, into boxing, and I started winning a few titles as an amateur, just like, you know, Yorkshire titles and things. I started getting in touch with art charities because I just thought, you know, I want to try and help them, which I did.
Yeah.
And I did that throughout my career. And then the Children's Art Surgery Fund, who I've done work with, you know, probably for the last 2 or 3 years on and off. But the Children's Art Surgery Fund, they're directly linked to the heart ward I had my surgery on.
Wow.
So it's like only like last month I got to meet her with the second time I've met her. But Karen Van Dorn, she was the surgeon who performed my surgery, like, you know, 27 years ago. And she's recently retired. She's got an OBE as well, which she deserves. So she's recently retired. So, you know, the Children's Art Surgery Fund, they put on like a little celebration for her. So that was brilliant. Me and Charlie and Connie, my little girl, we went down to Leeds for afternoon. So that was brilliant. And then, like very recently, they've made me an official ambassador for the Children's Art Surgery Fund, which, to be honest, it's like going along my boxing achievements, you know, that's right up there, you know, because I just feel like it's something I've always wanted to do. Because I am the proof. I'm literally the proof of what they do. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, and you're an inspiration to people who sort of start questioning. Am I gonna? And more for parents, I guess.
Exactly. And like me being a dad myself now, I just it makes you realise how scared my mum and dad must have been. You know, me as a 5-year-old little baby.
We start questioning, are they going to be able to do this, that, or the other?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, and obviously, I pursued boxing, but, you know, someone else might, you know, get into football or, you know, ballet dancing, whatever, but or nothing at all, just live a normal life. But if anything, I'm the proof that you know, after having open heart surgery, you can make a full recovery. As long as everything's all right, you know, you can live a normal life and go for what you want, which is obviously what I did. So I think my role as an ambassador will just be, you know, going to the heart ward when I can, seeing the patients, more for the parents as well, you know, and obviously talking to the parents, because, you know, my mum and dad were in the exact same situation that they are, and just basically getting involved in all the fundraisers. And
your mum and dad still around?
My mum and dad, yeah, they're
you seem like a family guy.
Oh mate, I've just got like the best family unit possible. You know, my mum and dad have been married like 45 years, I think. You know, my brother and sister, you know, obviously my wife Charlie, her family as well. Do you know what I mean? You know, Charlie's family, just a massive, you know, and that's been all the way through my boxing career, and just very, very lucky, really, very lucky.
Good stuff.
So I just think for me, just I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing with coaching. I want to keep doing that. I want to keep building that, and that's obviously, you know, the way I make my living now. But as well, if I can, you know, obviously do this ambassador's role for Children's Art Surgery Fund, and I've got a few things in the pipeline at the minute, what I might be able to tell you about in the future. But just basically stuff like using boxing to help people, basically, and probably especially kids at school. And I just think it's a brilliant outlet, you know, boxing training. Not about actually boxing or being a world champion, but just the discipline and the self-respect, the respect for others you learn, the benefits to your health, obviously, physically, mentally.
Yeah.
I just think it's an amazing sport, and boxing's given me the life I've got. So I couldn't be happier. You know, I was never a world champion, and I'm not a millionaire. Do you know what I mean? But for me, you know, my career, it can't be described as anything other than a success from where I came from, and I'm just very grateful. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, are there any personal challenges, personal challenges, or anything like that in the pipeline for you? Or
yeah, well, funnily you've just said that. I was literally talking this morning. I'm going to do an half marathon. So I was going to
say you must have run a lot. Are you a runner?
Yeah, obviously through my boxing career, you know, I'd love to know the mileage I've done running. Yeah. You know, from being an amateur to all the way through. But yeah, I think early next year I'm gonna book an half marathon. So obviously I'll be doing that for Children's Heart Surgery.
How far have you run furthest?
I've done half marathon.
Oh, you've done
so I did Great North Run. That was for a heart charity as well.
I did my first marathon this year.
Did it?
I said, yeah, I did Leeds.
Wow.
I did Leeds marathon.
Yeah.
I'd done the Sheffield half the year before.
Yeah.
And I say I did my first. Funny, earlier you were talking about your shoulder. I tripped up 7 miles in, snapped the ligament on my shoulder. I thought I'd fractured my shoulder.
Right.
So I was like running with my arm like.
And you finished it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Took me a bit longer than I'd intended, but again, it was like 35 degrees, and if you're going to do a marathon, don't do Leeds. There's a hill. It's like bloody Rutland Road. I'm not even joking. For about 3 miles, you're just running uphill. So
that's some achievement, pal. It really is, and they're good. They're just good things. It's good things to achieve, innit? You know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll be able to raise some good money. 100%,
mate. Well. Yeah. So, like I said, I'll probably.
And it's not just the money, is it? It's the.
Oh God, yeah.
It's it's the sort of like.
It's the awareness.
Of it.
Yeah.
Word weren't there for me, but
I'm going to do it with Sam as well. So Sam's going to do it. It's not the physical act of running. It's just giving people a chance to have a chat and bring them out the shell and build confidence, and then you build friendships, don't you? And again, it's not just physical, but it's your mental health. And just like touching on that as in boxing, I just I think especially in boxing, probably more does need to be done for fighters, for probably ex-fighters. And again, there's another charity called Boxers in Need, who I've had a little bit. I mean, they're just going through a little bit of a transition at the minute, and then I think they're really gonna ramp things up. But
I mean, again, we were talking, weren't we, about how not a lot get out in the best.
But I mean, and obviously, just mentioning Ricky, because he was one of my heroes as he were to millions growing up. But obviously, he's the example where even if you've reached the absolute pinnacle and you've got millions in bank and you've got everything you could possibly want physically, you might need help. Do you know what I mean? And it's like I don't know. It's such a weird sport, boxing, because you don't get any help. I mean, I'd like to think I'm very lucky, because I mean, don't get me wrong, we all have I think we all suffer with mental health to a certain degree, obviously. But I'd like to think, I'm quite all right, and I fell into doing what I'm doing now. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm quite happily retired. You know what I mean? I've accepted, that this is just a new chapter, and I'm passionate about what I'm doing. But a lot of boxers don't get that. More often than not, boxers don't get that, and they leave. They leave the boxing career behind, and it's just kind of that numbness where what do I do now? Like I said about going to college to do plumbing and not picking stuff up and stuff. That's because all I wanted to be was a boxer, and I'm not the only one who's going to be like that out there. So it's like you leave everything, you neglect everything in order to be a success at boxing, and you might be a success, but then one day that's going to finish, and then what do you do after? Well, I'd love for there to be something for boxers after they retire, because it's just, if you explain it to the normal person, it sounds crazy, because I think people must assume that, you're a former professional, but you must be looked after in some capacity. Footballers have the FA, they have they get pensions, don't they? Obviously, boxers get nothing.
I think boxers, again, we talked about it. Boxing as a sport, I guess, is quite a good parallel with like the world in general, where you've got that top 1 or 2% have got everything.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
And then the 98% underneath that have got scraps to and sort of.
And like I said earlier, there's two different sides to boxing. There's the side where your Tyson Furies and your Anthony Joshuas, and people see you on TV and boxing on Riyadh cards and stuff, making the money. And then there's the other side of boxing, which is small hall, where the most boxers are there. Do you know what I mean? And they might get a breakthrough to that other end, but then again they might not. and like I said, it's you know, it's just are you going to be comfortable with life after boxing? I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know what the answer is. I ain't got any suggestions because it's I'm sure that this conversation what we're having, I'm sure it's gone on for years and years about what look, how can we song this, how can we do it? And I don't know. I'd love to see all the money that is in the top end of boxing now with your Riyadh cards. You know, I'd love, you know, maybe Turkey, Al Sheikh, and you know the other promoters involved. If they got their heads together, maybe they could create some sort of union or some sort of charity or something, especially for ex-boxers, because there's enough money. Do you know what I mean? Like I've said to you, obviously I'm lucky. Obviously I didn't do too bad, but I didn't earn anywhere near. Well, I didn't earn anywhere near to be able to not work for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And that's obviously I'm a former British and Commonwealth champion, but I'm not going to be the only one. But again, I'm very lucky, as in I've found a path after boxing to be able to make an income. So it's for the boxers who aren't lucky. It's for the boxers who finish boxing and they've got absolutely nothing, and then that's when they come into troubles, in it, financially, mentally, and again, obviously, the closest one to home is probably Ricky Hatton, which shocked me massively. I mean, we all know he's had his troubles in the past, but Ricky were like my boxing hero growing up. Do you know what I mean? I remember talking about the Mayweather fight. I can remember getting up in early hours and watching that, you know, as you know, maybe a 15-year-old, 14, 15. And then
4 morning job.
4 morning, do you know what I mean? Getting up and obviously he was a hero for so many British boxers and boxers all over the world. And then through boxing professional, obviously getting to meet Ricky, and obviously kind of, you know, not knowing him as a friend, but kind of, you know, bumping into him at an event and him saying, "Oh, hiya, Tommy, how's things?" And for me, that was like fucking Ricky Hatton. Do you know what I mean? And then
brilliant.
And then obviously I would one of the biggest honours ever, obviously, going to his funeral, which were like, you know.
How did that come about? Was that were you invited or?
Yeah, I was invited. Paul Speak, his manager, invited me, because obviously, I mean,
again, I imagine that were a who's who of.
Oh God, yeah, and for me,
boxing,
that was like one of the biggest honours I've ever had in my life. You know, to actually be invited to Ricky's funeral, and it was an amazing send off. But you know, Paul Speak, his manager, he sent me a message and invited me. And funnily enough, I was with them both probably about 2 months before. So I think it was like back end of June. I was down in Wales and I was covering a box cup for Fight Zone. I was doing commentary on it.
Right.
And on the same night, Rick in the same venue was doing like one of his after dinner, his evening with Ricky Hatton. So we were in the same hotel. So I saw him in bar. So I was talking to Ricky, I was talking to Paul, and obviously that were last time I saw Ricky. But again, obviously the man suffered, didn't he? Bless him. You know, he suffered, and again, I think, and they've started the Ricky Hatton Foundation as well. You know, which is, again, you know, more so for mental health, but you know, I think more so for ex-boxers as well. You know, alongside the likes of Boxers in Need. So I just think, you know, if you can, you know, support them two organisations, you know, in any way you can, because it's for a good cause.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, I feel like we could chat forever.
I know. Yeah, thank you, pal. I've enjoyed it.
I think we should definitely sort a game of paddle out.
I know, and we'll have to play
keep in touch. One thing that I've not asked you, which we talked about before started recording, is who, you know, now you've been on the podcast, who do you think we should? Who do you think I should be contacting and getting in front of?
Yeah, I've had I mean, there's loads of people from Sheffield. It's not just boxing, is it?
No.
But I'd love you to do one with Clinton. if you can get Clinton Woods on, because again, like talking about, you know, like seeing Ricky Hatton and saying hello to him, but I remember going to Arena to watch Clinton again when
I saw him at Arena. It weren't. He was fighting some Mexican guy.
That was the one that I went to. Yeah. I think he fought him.
Come out in a sombrero. Or
I think he's passed now. Bless him. Gonzalez, I think that were. But you know, I can remember being 14, about 14-year-old, going to Arena with my mates to watch Clinton. So he was like my hero growing up, and then again through boxing, actually, you know, getting to meet him.
So I once heard a story. I'm pretty sure he got into it quite late, didn't he? And
Clinton
just to lose weight or something.
Yeah, he had a brilliant story. I think he boxed as an amateur and then left it alone for a few years, and then just went back. It might have been when he was about 19, just to because he'd put on a bit of weight and stuff. And then and what a story he had. Do you know what I mean? You know, IBF world champion. But again, getting to know Clinton, and then throughout my boxing career, just looking at my phone, and Clinton Woods is ringing me just to see, Tommy, what's happening? When's your next fight? And that's like fucking pinching myself. Clinton Woods, you know what I mean? He was my hero growing up. So yeah, try and get Clinton on. I actually, again, one of my amazing, sorry for going on here, by the way.
No, not at all.
One of my best memories from boxing was just winning British title, and like the Monday or the Tuesday after the Saturday, I went to Clinton's house. So me and Glyn went to Clinton's and obviously took the Lonsdale belt. You know, he must have just gave us a call and said, "Oh, just pop in. I'm at home." So just got to go and spend an afternoon with him. So that was brilliant. And he was showing. It made me laugh because he was like, he's got this room upstairs where he just it's not like a memorabilia room. What's done out? It's just like where he keeps junk and stuff. But amongst this junk, he's got like gloves he fought Roy Jones in and stuff.
I remember watching that fight as well.
And shorts he wore. And I was like, Clinton, like, these need to be framed and like up. And he's like, yeah, but no one's bothered anymore. Is that because that's just what Clinton's like? Is it the proper Sheffield man in it?
Like I said, I did because Glyn said to get him on, and we had a chat, but you know, didn't happen at the time.
Try and follow that up because Clinton will be a good one. A Sheffield legend.